Pennywise isn't just a clown, it's a mask for something ancient, hungry, and patient. But the face behind that mask changes everything. In 1990, Tim Curry turned a TV miniseries into a generation's shared nightmare, leaning on charm, sarcasm, and a smile that felt a little too human. Decades later, Bill Skarsgård arrived in the dark, all taking eyes and predatory stillness, giving the creature a feral, otherworldly presence on the big screen. Same monster, two completely different terrors. So tonight, we're asking the only question that matters. Who scared us more? The neighborhood trickster who lured us in with a joke, or the thing that barely remembers how to pretend it's human? Let's see for ourselves, shall we? Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
What's the matter? One balloon.
Tim Curry is Pennywise. When Stephen King's It aired as a two-part miniseries in 1990, no one expected it to leave such a permanent scar on pop culture. TV horror back then was often watered down. Network restrictions meant little gore, modest makeup budgets, and no room for extreme violence. But what the production lacked in visual horror, it made up for in Tim Curry's performance. His weapon was his expression. His tool was his personality, and his version of Pennywise still feels like the kind of monster who might be waiting for you around the corner, ready with a joke and a grin that lingers a little too long. Curry's Pennywise wasn't just a clown, it was a salesman of nightmares. He didn't leap out of the shadows, he invited you in. With that sardonic sing-song voice and those sharp, darting eyes, he weaponized charm. When he teased, "They all float down here," it sounded less like a threat and more like an invitation. The fear didn't come from what he did, but how he said it. He laughed with you before laughing at you. That was his power. He made fear feel friendly. Because the miniseries couldn't rely on heavy effects, Curry carried the entire tone of the story on his back. The makeup was simple with red hair, greasy face paint, and a bright suit. Yep, just like Ronald McDonald. Yet beneath that simplicity, Curry's performance crackled with menace. Every eyebrow twitch, every smirk hinted at the predatory intelligence beneath the makeup. When he leered from the storm drain at Georgie, you could almost forget he was a creature at all. He looked human enough to trick you, just long enough for the dread to settle in. Something is unsettling about a monster that talks too much, and Curry understood that. His Pennywise reveled in dialogue by mocking the kids, taunting them with their fears, breaking the fourth wall just enough to make viewers squirm. His beep beep Richie delivery turned a silly catchphrase into a death knell. Proof that even humor could feel dangerous in his hands. Two scenes in particular cemented his legacy. The storm drain opener, of course, where Pennywise's cheerful banter slowly tilts into unease before those razor teeth flash, and the library scene, where he torments adult Richie, floating balloons filled with blood through the air while mocking him in broad daylight. It's Curry at his most gleefully deranged, standing amid chaos that only he seems to enjoy. That's the beauty of his portrayal. He doesn't hide the fun he's having. His joy is the audience's horror. Even Stephen King himself once admitted Curry's version embodied something close to what he imagined while writing the novel. A predator who could easily exist in your neighborhood. His Pennywise was more human than monstrous, and that made him worse. You could imagine him at a carnival, waving at you through a crowd. You could picture him stepping into your dream, smiling with those two white teeth. The terror wasn't in seeing the monster, it was in realizing he'd been there the whole time, just hiding behind grease paint. Curry's performance also benefits from what it couldn't show. In the absence of CGI, there's an intimacy to the horror. When Pennywise lunges, you don't see digital transformations or glowing eyes. What you see is raw, physical acting. It's old-school stagecraft at its finest, and it works because our brains fill in the blanks. The fear becomes personal. To this day, fans of the original miniseries insist that Curry's Pennywise was more terrifying, precisely because of those limitations. The fear he created wasn't about monsters under the bed, it was about the people you trust. The things you find funny turning against you. His Pennywise was fear, wearing a face we recognize, which makes him timeless. In short, Tim Curry didn't play Pennywise like a monster, he played him like an idea, and it worked like a charm. Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise. When Stephen King's It was reimagined for the big screen in 2017, audiences braced themselves for another trip into the sewers of Derry, but no one expected what Bill Skarsgård would do with Pennywise. Director Andy Muschietti's reboot had the budget, the effects, and the creative freedom that the 1990 miniseries never could. Yet, even with all that technical power, the absolute terror didn't come from CGI. It came from Skarsgård himself, just as Tim Curry's performance did. His Pennywise wasn't a man hiding behind makeup. It was something inhuman, trying and failing to act like one. Where Tim Curry's clown lured you in with charm, Skarsgård's creature studied your reactions, trying to copy them like a spider testing vibrations on its web. From the very first frame, Skarsgård made it clear that this wasn't your childhood Pennywise. His face alone did half the work. That exaggerated forehead, the wide alien grin, and the eyes that could drift apart at will. No CGI required. That lazy eye trick, which Skarsgård performed naturally, gave the illusion that Pennywise wasn't looking at his victims, but rather through them, like a predator measuring its meal. His voice didn't settle into one tone either. It cracked, shifted, and swelled unpredictably, swinging from babyish sweetness to guttural growls in the same sentence. That instability made him terrifying, because you never knew what version of him you were getting. The film wastes no time showing just how unsettling this new Pennywise can be. The opening Georgie scene is a masterclass in performance. When Georgie peeks into the storm drain, Skarsgård's clown seems shy, almost innocent, his eyes glistening with false warmth. But as the conversation goes on, his speech falters, saliva gathers at his lips, and the light in his eyes turns ravenous. When the bite finally comes, it's not shocking because it's gory. It's surprising because the illusion of friendliness snaps in an instant. In those few minutes, Skarsgård captures everything this Pennywise is. A mimic, a monster rehearsing humanity until it gets bored. As the film unfolds, his physicality becomes just as crucial as his dialogue. Skarsgård twisted his body into unnatural shapes, using jerky movements and sudden stillness to make viewers uncomfortable. Take the projector scene. When Pennywise's enormous form bursts from the screen, it's not the scale that terrifies you, it's how he moves. The way his limbs flail like marionette strings, his head lolling at an impossible angle. It's pure nightmare fuel. Even in smaller moments, his tics and twitches make you question whether he's even made of flesh and bone. Then there's the infamous dancing clown scene. What could have been silly in another actor's hands turns hypnotic and disturbing in Skarsgård's. As the camera locks on his face, his body jerks in puppet-like rhythm. His grin fixed, his eyes dead. The dance is both ridiculous and horrifying. A perfect metaphor for Pennywise's personality. A creature that understands how to mock joy, but not how to feel it. He's performing fun the same way a predator performs camouflage. Muschietti's direction leans into this uncanny energy, embracing the cosmic horror at the heart of Stephen King's mythology. Unlike the 1990 version, this Pennywise is an emissary of the macroverse, a being older than time itself, closer to a god than a ghost. The film hints at this through surreal imagery, such as floating children, a room collapsing into darkness, and the sense that Derry itself is infected by his presence. Skarsgård's portrayal complements that scale. His Pennywise doesn't crave flesh as much as he craves fear. You can almost sense him feeding off the tension in every scene, his smile widening the more terrified his victims become. What truly separates Skarsgård's Pennywise from Curry's is humanity, or rather, the complete absence of it. Curry's clown felt like an evil person you could meet in a bad dream. Skarsgård's feels like something that doesn't even understand what a person is. His every movement, every sound feels like an imitation of humanity seen through a cracked mirror. He doesn't lure you in with jokes, he studies you, figuring out what emotions to wear next. The result is a monster that doesn't always need to hide behind humor, because it doesn't care if you recognize it as a predator. It knows you can't stop it anyway. And while Skarsgård had the luxury of modern filmmaking, like digital effects, elaborate sets, and detailed lore, he never let those tools overshadow his performance. The visual spectacle supported his presence rather than replaced it. When his mouth splits impossibly wide, or his body unfolds from a refrigerator, you still believe he's there, because Skarsgård makes it real with physical weight and commitment. By It Chapter 2, Skarsgård took the character even deeper, exploring Pennywise's loneliness and ego. His interactions with the Adult Losers Club show flashes of vulnerability, a twisted need for recognition that makes him more tragic than monstrous. Yet, in every smile and stutter, you can feel the ancient hunger underneath. In the end, Bill Skarsgård's Pennywise represents a new breed of cinematic horror, one built on unpredictability. You can't predict his rhythm, his voice, or his mood, and that's what makes him terrifying. You're watching something that looks like a clown but moves like an alien, laughs like a child but thinks like a god. He's horror unmoored from logic, a shapeshifter whose most excellent disguise is innocence. If Tim Curry's Pennywise made you afraid of what could be hiding under the circus tent, Skarsgård makes you afraid of what might be hiding under reality itself.
Smell the stink of your fear.
Marvelous verdict. That brings us to the end of this video, but I know what you're thinking. Who won, right? Tim Curry and Bill Skarsgård didn't just play the same villain, they defined two completely different eras of fear. Curry's Pennywise was a psychological nightmare, a devil hiding in daylight, using charm as his weapon. His laughter felt real, his words cut deeper than his claws, and he terrified audiences with nothing more than a smirk and a joke that went on too long. There was something heartbreakingly human about his evil, like he could be anyone behind the makeup. Skarsgård, on the other hand, took that same legend and dragged it into the modern age, giving us a Pennywise that was purely disturbing. He made fear feel cosmic, something vast and unknowable that laughs because it enjoys the game. If we're splitting hairs, Curry's version wins by the smallest bloodstained margin. Not for being scarier, but for feeling real. Skarsgård terrified us with a monster. Curry terrified us with a man pretending not to be one. Curry's clown made you fear the smile. Skarsgård made you fear what was behind it. Two different monsters, one shared legacy. A promise that fear, like Pennywise, never truly dies. Who do you think was scarier? Tim Curry's mischievous nightmare or Bill Skarsgård's cosmic terror? Let us know in the comments below. And if you like this deep dive, smash that like button, share it with all your horror-loving buddies, and make sure to subscribe for more spine-chilling breakdowns. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks, everyone.